Why are you doing what you're doing? It's a simple question, really. Sitting in a classroom at early hours, memorizing dates and facts to the letter? Why? Now, one might say that the reason for secondary education is to prepare us for university. Great. Now, why go to university? Then one may reply that it is necessary to get a university degree, so to have the qualifications to be hired by somebody who cares about that degree. Okay, so we can begin to see that school is no longer about advancing ourselves, but is rather designed for the employers. So if we're no longer benefiting ourselves, then why do it? The only remaining answer then is that it is a necessary means to be able to eventually earn an income. So if we take money as the ultimate purpose of education, then the most sensible way to live our lives is to prepare to do whatever it is that makes the most money, which is probably something you don't like doing, in order to make enough money so that you can go on doing that of which you don't like doing. Think about that a while. This warped idea of education, objectively, is quite unsatisfying. School, theoretically, should do three things. It should inspire us with the past, promote self-discovery in the present, and prepare us for a future that doesn't exist. Yet, how many of us have sat in a classroom at some point and just stared in utter confusion because you have no idea why you're doing what it is you're doing? I believe the Canadian school system is not designed to give us any form of real, authentic education, and this is a big problem. Public schooling was introduced to Canada in 1867. Let me tell you a bit about life in 1867. First off, there was no internet. School is the only constant means of consuming information. Second, manufacturing and factory work were in very high demand. The most valued traits in higher-level employees were knowledge and discipline. For this reason, it made sense to have children sit in rows resembling a factory line. Kids were taught to ask permission to speak and act, and were overloaded with knowledge and facts, and given a grade on the quality of product they produced. Sounds kind of outdated, right? This is school in 1867. This is school now. Society has changed drastically since the late 1800s, so why is school still functioning the same way? The Ministry of Education is a perfect example of why learning about the past is not the same as learning from the past. Knowing the date of the First World War didn't prevent the Second. Learning about Sir Hamlet will not give a child any additional value, but learning from Hamlet may. It's not about knowing the plot, symbols, or connections we are told to recite. It's about seeing the Hamlet in all of us, dissecting his madness to understand our own madness, and ultimately come to our own conclusions. Northrop Frye backs this up by saying that the purpose of literature is that of proportion and perspective, of seeing what it's all about, an association that only detachment can bring. Now, most students, myself included, learn about the past, but don't connect to it. So we end up with disengaged students with the skill set suitable for the late 1800s, bound to repeat the history so rigorously instilled in them. But there's only so long we can look at the past. School is happening in the present. You see, school is designed to take countless students and create one singular type of student, a scholar. The word scholar comes from ancient Greece, and it means leisure or spare time. In context, it means studying all of that of which you enjoy, that of which is not necessary for your survival. See, one of the biggest misconceptions of school is that it is necessary work and you must achieve something. You see, school awards honors for learning, which in itself defeats the purpose of learning. The reward for studying French is the ability to speak French and having fun with French people. But when you get a degree for it, the degree becomes the point. You see, scholarship is about the play, not the work. But all we seem to do in school is work, 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 go to this class, sit to this lecture, do this by this time, and then you get home and now you can relax. But we've missed the point. And if scholarship is about discovery, we cannot, by any means, ignore self-discovery. Students nowadays avoid self-discovery like the plague, because there's no external reward for it. High-stakes testing, according to an academic journal, says that it creates a vision of, creates a philosophy of education that values highly what can be measured, and more problematically, values most highly the measurement itself. See, children go into the first grade with wide-eyed ambition. They want to be astronauts and cowboys and Spider-Men, only to exit high school with no idea who they are and no ambition to find out. And I know this path well because I am the textbook definition of what school would define a scholar. Until one day I came to the stark realization that I would have no idea what to do with myself and no idea how to value myself without the constant supply of report cards and test scores. I became numb to creativity, and none of my courses could help me with that problem. That problem, I found, is irrelevant to curriculum. When was the last time, if ever, that you were truly given the opportunity to explore the question, what do you desire? If money were not an issue, how would you really spend your life? The question isn't, does or doesn't school create a public? The question is, what kind of public does it create? School is tasked with one of the most important questions, I believe, in the world, which is, how do we prepare students for a future that doesn't exist? A future to which is absolutely impossible to predict. This is a heavy question. Everything else, the learning from the past, the learning about ourselves, all leads up to this, to the two fundamental pillars of education, creativity and thinking. It's common knowledge that school kills creativity. In 1968, NASA ran a study testing the creativity in 1,600 kids and those same 1,600 people later in adulthood. In childhood, almost all passed. By adulthood, only 2 passed. Creativity is not taught, it's brought out. And the root word of education, by definition, translates into to bring out. But traditional methods of teaching, such as memorization and testing, are counterintuitive cycles of killing this creativity. Frye spoke in his novel, The Educated Imagination, about traditional schooling as more of an archetype than a shared art. He found that students are detached from the creative roots of their subjects, such as the diminishing appearance of poetry in a literature course. He concluded that in order to truly be an individual in society, we must focus our education on our imagination. No matter how much experience we may gather in life, we can never in life get the dimension of experience that the imagination gives us. Secondly, students have to be taught to think for themselves. If you look at a typical school day, it's very occasional that it will involve any deep thinking or decision making. We come to class when we're told, we sit in our assigned classrooms, we have textbooks with equations that we just assume are right, but we don't know why or where they come from. We check our answers by flipping to the back of the book, because we assume that's correct as well. We copy slide after slide, note after note, meanwhile we haven't even read the assigned book. But that's not the point, because the notes spit out any major ideas we should have come up with on our own, and did most of the real thinking for us. This generation is a generation to tackle new and rising issues, and if school does not promote thinking and creativity, no committed student will have the capacity to come up with a new solution. If textbooks were all that we truly needed to know, issues like climate change wouldn't exist, because whoever wrote the science textbook would have solved it already. Preparing kids for tomorrow doesn't end with passing on the knowledge of all that came before. It's about inspiring them to pursue their creativity and build their own independent thinking. Now, I'm not just up here to complain. I don't have all the answers, and school is not a lost cause. We can redesign school to bring justice to the education of our youth. I will propose 3 problems and solutions to create a better educational experience. Number 1, teachers must be teachers. Teachers are one of the most impactful factors on our future, yet it is portrayed in society as a middle to lower class job, with only a 70% grade requirement and a middle to low class salary. Teachers should be regarded similar to doctors and lawyers, both in pay and qualifications. And once the pay, expectations, and qualifications are significantly higher, the right people will follow. Right now, less than 35% of teachers feel engaged in their jobs. This should not be the case. As my father once told me, being a teacher is not a job, nor do you choose to be a teacher. Teaching is either who you are, or it's not. Chronological grades and standardized testing needs to go. Moving all students through at the same pace inevitably ends up being dominated half by bored individuals and half by struggling individuals. We hold back those who think at a faster pace, and we rush those who need more time, or give them the idea that they're not good at it. Neither case is better, and neither case should be looked down upon. Courses should be credited on the basis of personal mastery. There's no value in saying a student is in grade 9, 10, 11, or 12, or has a 50, 70, 90%. Testing, for the most part, should be open-ended and not time-constrained. Think of it like this. Does remembering the answer to a test question 5 minutes after the test is collected make you less qualified to pass the course? Test questions should be assigned earlier in the course, consisting of fewer but more abstract problems that they won't see in class. This way, students can explore their ideas as they go through the concepts, and ultimately teachers can mark based on the student's ability to use the knowledge acquired in class to come up with a creative, functional solution. This extends beyond the traditional method of testing, which just tests the regurgitation of predetermined answers. It is better to graduate more educated individuals at a slower pace than graduate masses of students who do not know what they're doing. Number 3, education must be modeled around the socioeconomic structure of youth in Canada. As I've already mentioned, the current system fits very awkwardly in current society. So we need something that enhances the existing lifestyle of the Canadian teenager. Technology is such a staple in society that online schooling must be a significant part of education. But it cannot be all of education because Canadian youth are also very isolated from personal collaboration. With higher quality teachers, it becomes less necessary to spend so much time in the classroom. 2 days of conceptual learning is all that is necessary to give students a good foundation to explore. This learning is strictly conceptual. Google facts are no longer necessary enough to be taught. Then, students can spend the next 2 to 3 days learning through online mediums. These can provide additional support, add-on lessons, and thinking projects to be addressed later on in the week. Online mediums are also a good place to engage students in self-discovery courses, where they can explore their interests, process their emotions, and meditate on their personal philosophy. On the final day, students return to class for a conference day, where students collaborate and come to consensus on topics debated throughout the week. This gives them the opportunity to look at real-world issues and extend their learning from the classroom back into life. All in all, the Canadian school system, as is, just doesn't cut it. Our youth deserve to truly experience education. They deserve to be inspired by the past, not to live in the past. They have the right to know themselves, not just know the textbook. And they must be prepared for the future. They must have the skills and creativity to make an impact like never seen before. This is not just a dream. Education can be done right if we all push for the right kind of change. I want to leave you with one final thought. There's no such thing as being a bad student or being bad at school or being bad at math. Everyone learns at their own pace. Everyone learns in unique ways. But at the end of the day, we all have the same brain, the same capacity, the same aptitude to learn. I have watched my father take failing students and produce professors simply because he cared enough to give them a better learning experience. School is for everyone, and it is our biggest duty as a society to create an educational experience that truly brings out the best in everyone. Thank you. I did it